So we have some community norms, and I'm not gonna mess with it. Okay, so what we ask is that for you to be fully present. And what does fully present mean? It's different when we're meeting in person and we can see each other's faces and we can see, look at each other, but we can't do that virtually. So if you are able to, we ask that you keep your cameras on, just because as we talk, it's nice to see faces and see if what we're saying resonates with you or is not resonating with you. So if you're able to just flip your cameras on, it's okay if we have Friday hair, like we don't look our best, but it's just something that helps us as panelists connect with our audience. We ask that you assume goodwill. So all of us are here as volunteers. And we just want to share knowledge and we want to learn from each other. So if something does not resonate with you, just understand that it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a good place. And that leads us into trusting the process. So we have a few questions that our panelists will answer, but also just if anything bubbles up for you or comes up with you, we ask that you put it in the chat. We're working together, the panelists, and we'll bring up the questions as the conversation goes. But it's important that you just trust the process, and part of that is hanging in there with us. Because if you tuned in because you wanted to hear about a specific subject and that's not what you're hearing, just hang in there because we have so much to discuss. And then also step up and step back. So if something that if you're very expressive and you have so many questions that want to get answered, just please do so, but also make sure that we're all working together to create the space so that other people that maybe are not as quick on the chat or have an opportunity to also contribute or ask their questions. And next I have, it's not an agenda, but it's kind of just the flow of it. So we have our welcome, we have our introductions, we're gonna have some panel questions and an open Q&A. So if there is time, we will have some time to just, you can ask your question or you can put them in the chat. And then our closing remarks. So I will begin. We will begin by, you just heard from Noemi, and she wants to share a video. You heard her mention the campaign that her organization is currently running. So I'm going to let, it's a very short video that will play, and then she will tell us more about it. Take it away, Holly.
So this is kind of the part of the response for COVID-19, right? I see some people with masks and things like that. And it's so important for all of us as educators and people working with children to really, keep ourselves safe so that way we can keep working with them. So, but also when we're wearing these masks, I know you guys have been thinking and talking about it, like how do kids really learn how to speak, right? If all this information is missing, right? That's so incredibly important. So the Florida Association for Infant Mental Health has started this campaign to be able to, purchase and donate. And so we're asking people to buy a box and share a box of clear masks. So that way the babies can, and our children can get all the information that they need to be able to learn social skills, speech, language, all the things that they need that they're being deprived right now because we also do have to be safe. So thank you for sharing this quick film.
Hi, folks. I'm Neil Boris. I am president of the Florida Association for Infant Mental Health, and I'm really pleased to be with you to talk real quickly about our...
Maybe try to refresh.
We call Faces Are Essential. I'll just show you a couple of slides to help orient you to what this is all about. It's really a terrific campaign, and it's really an important one in my...
Norma, I think you accidentally took it over.
I did. Okay. Okay, I'll stop touching the screen.
Okay, give me just a second. I'll reset it. Okay, thanks guys for patience. Try that one more time. Ah.
Maybe if you refresh.
Hi, folks. I'm Neil Boris. I am president of the Florida Association for Infant Mental Health, and I'm really pleased to be with you to talk real quickly about our campaign that we call Faces Are Essential. I'll just show you a couple of slides to help orient you to what this is all about. It's really a terrific campaign, and it's really an important one in my view, and that's the case I want to make to you right now. Florida Association for Infant Mental Health has joined together with our partners at Clear Mask to bring you the Faces Are Essential campaign, and it's really because infants and young children really need to see faces. This is developmentally so important to them, and as these kids come back into childcare settings, into preschools, into family care settings, really being able to connect with others through faces is developmentally essential. Now, I love this picture because this is
Well, and I can
I'm so
summarize.
sorry, you guys. I don't know why it's not playing for you.
So basically the idea is that, we know about mirror neurons and how important it is for, an adult, right? Absolutely, I'll definitely share the link. An adult and a child is looking at each other, looking at each other's faces, right? We know that when we smile, the baby starts smiling, and then when the child smiles, we start smiling, like that connection back and forth. And having all this covered really does make that a barrier, right? So being able to see the faces, even though it does look a little weird because it has like that white line, it's still so much better than having to cover our faces. But we also do want to be safe. So one of the things that they're trying to do is, like, for example, if you're interested, you could donate to be able to, like, your agencies or whoever else you can find to do that. They can purchase one box for your learning center, and then also give one box to one that can't pay. So for example, I got great news today that we got a huge shipment in, so we're going to go this weekend and start packing boxes to get things shipped out, because it's just such a requirement now. We can't go another however long it's going to be without our babies being able to see our faces and our smiles and the wrinkles and all the things that go with that communication and that learning.
And I want to add to that, I didn't say anything in the last, but Noemi is so right. Like, we just opened on Monday, and the teachers were wearing their regular masks, and one of the parents donated these masks to us, those clear masks. And it's wonderful. They're wonderful. And not only that, but we've had 2-year-olds, and it's funny but sad at the same time. Like, when they have their masks on, some of them don't realize they can talk. They just sit there, but then when their masks are taken off at like nap time, they start chattering. So we're even going to look into these, like, if we can find ones in child sizes. If you know of any, Noemi, let me know, because some of them literally are not speaking while they have their masks on, but you can tell the difference when the teachers do. So we've gone to using them exclusively.
Right. So this company that's making these masks are also starting to make a child size one. I don't know what the process is, but let's keep on the lookout because it's just so important for our babies and their development and our safety.
Yes, definitely. And then just because we're talking about the masks, it's going to lead us into our first question. And Noemi, if you can chime in on this, is so what are some of the So what are some of the impacts? And you mentioned some of the impacts and of COVID-19 and the children and interactions. But what are some of the other impacts, and maybe practices to ensure the safety of all the children and the teachers? Noemi?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was frozen for a minute. So impact of COVID, or to remain safety, right? To keep safety. I think you guys do a lot of these things already, right? Making sure they're taking the trip to the bathroom, make sure they're washing their hands, make sure that they know how to, really wash their hands really well. I know I've seen in a lot of places that they're showing the videos. There's a Baby Shark song. Have you guys heard the Baby Shark song with washing your hands? You know it. They love that Baby Shark song. So there's that one for teaching them how to wash their hands. Really making it a fun, engaging thing. Also something I noticed like at the beginning, and hopefully it's not that much anymore, even though you may find some of these things that the kids are, some kids were scared of the mask at the beginning or are still. So making them fun. If they have one that's, very white or clear, putting a little heart or a little something, a little design that they have, so that way they know that that one's there. If it's a very generic, let's say like they all have the blue ones, well then, make a little design or a letter or initial, something that makes it theirs. So that way we have seen some places in other states that they're like swapping and masks, which defeats the purpose, right? So, trying to make it interesting, trying to make it their own, trying to make their own like style, right? So that way they feel that it's, just part of their outfit, part of their stuff, and every kid's gonna do something a little different, like something different. And I think that that's something that our amazing teachers, excel at, getting a child and just being so creative at finding what works for that child, even the more difficult ones, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. We have some comments in the chat box. So there was a question of, are they washable? Are they reusable? And also there's a question of, do they fog up after a while?
Yeah, they do or they don't?
They do not fog.
Oh, good.
We've been just doing like a Clorox wipe or a Lysol spray every day and then letting them hang at the end of the day to clean them, but they do not fog up at all.
Wow. I know that best practices would probably be to throw them out every day, but how long are you able to use them that you feel like comfortable?
I mean, we've just been using, we just started like 2 days ago using them. So we tried, it's hard to have them thrown out like every single day. We have them like labeled. I have one right here, like with our names on it. So we don't like, share them, but I think they would be good for a couple days before you go to the next, set.
Okay, well, we'll definitely, we'll send out a link. We'll send out the link for the video and then some more additional information. So as we start going through the questions, it's, we're going to be really focusing on why is belonging important in early childhood. So the next question is for Tori. And Tori, I wanted to ask you, how do we welcome and include all children and families into our learning environments? How do we create a sense of belonging and community within these learning environments, whether we're a family childcare home or, a center-based?
Right. I think a lot of it, as many in the field know, just establishing trust and really building relationships and letting families feel welcome. And I know that looks a little different this year because I know, for instance, like we're not letting parents in the building right now to try to reduce COVID. However, we're making sure there is a lot of two-way communication. So we've been having families, bring in artifacts from home or sending in a family photo. We've allowed parents to like Zoom in to the classrooms, like when we did Meet the Teacher. And even today we're piloting something. I'll let you know next time how this works, but we have a Friday coffee Zoom time where the parents are able to Zoom in and speak with the teacher directly and just have conversations about what went on this week. So I think, now communication might look a little different, but it's really important. And then we want to make sure that we have obviously family surveys and all that, but making sure that parents have a voice and that we know that we feel they're the expert with their child, not us. We're an expert in the field, but not about that child, the child's background, their culture. So we make sure that they're able to share that with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just I guess as a follow-up to that, you touched upon it lightly. And why is family involvement important in early childhood education? What are the impacts of including and not including families in our learning environments?
Well, I think, when children are born, their parents are their world, right? And so we're their first outside experience a lot of times. So one, we want the child to feel safe and welcome and know that they belong. And if we're excluding them because of, any reason, then, that obviously chips away at, how they feel about themselves. And I think too, with families, you want families to trust in schools and trust, that they're in a good space. And I feel like, it empowers families that, they are part of the educational process. So I think it's critical that they're involved and that they feel welcomed and included, parents and children. So.
Do any of the other panelists have anything to add to that?
No, relationships, especially in early childhood, are just so important. Studies show that the more positive relationships they have with their caregivers, and you're such an important part of that because you're there with them 8 hours a day. Like, there was one point, and we mentioned it last time, that my daughter fell in love with her teacher, and while I was a tiny bit jealous, I was so happy because then that meant that that she was getting this amazing role model in her life that would give her that nurturing when I wasn't there. And you guys are that. And when you have a good relationship, not just with the child, but also with the parent, then if something's happening, you may find one day the kid's acting really weird and you're like, what's going on? Maybe they'll have the faith in you to be able to say, we have this relationship. I trust you to keep my privacy. Their dad and I are having a hard time. And without that connectedness with that relationship with the parent, you're not going to find out, oh, the father just left or the mom just got arrested or, grandma just died. You're not going to know unless you have that relationship. And then if you have that dialogue, you could be able to tell the parent, I'm so glad that you told me that, grandma just died because she was talking about, grandma, during nap time and she was crying. And then that's a holistic approach to that child, right? Where you guys can really work together for that child's grieving or loss or whatever's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess as we're talking about the importance of building these family relationships and the impacts it has, one of the things that can impact relationships is implicit bias. So this is for you, Noemi, and then also all the other panelists as well. Please chime in. Jennifer. I want to say J-Lo and J-Soul.
That's all right. I can roll with that.
J-Lo and J-Soul. I guess, what are some examples of implicit bias? We've been hearing, implicit bias and these words, and there's so much more than these buzzwords. So what does it look like? What are some examples?
Yeah, so before we get started on examples, I'd like to just share a definition because while there are many different definitions and really, each one is relatively the same, implicit bias, you've possibly also heard of unconscious bias, which really are stereotypes or attitudes that affect the way that we relate with people, the way that we perhaps respond, our actions and even decisions, oftentimes in an unconscious manner. And here's the reality, we all have them, but it really takes a conscious effort to realize, where is my bias coming from? And one of the things that we can do is, there's implicit bias tests online that you can check out, kind of like, where are those biases coming from? Or should I say, what biases do I hold? And as we look at implicit bias, one of the key reasons why we develop such biases is because our brains are looking for patterns, these tendencies to really associate and make sense of this uber complicated world that we live in. And it comes from our upbringing, it comes from the media, and we develop these stereotypes and association based on what we've learned. And then we associate those with specific groups. So some examples that might show up are around gender, race, ability, orientation, language, really just about anything. And how that might also translate is, for example, you might hear someone say, oh, blue is only a boy's color, or pink is only for girls, or you have to act this way because you are a boy or you're a girl. Another way this shows up is around race, which also intersects with gender. You know, think about when we have children in our classroom, typically, you know, a lot of times we're always looking at Black boys or Black children and how they're behaving. Even though we are observing all children, we have more of an implicit bias when Black children are behaving in a certain way. And we automatically go and we say, oh, that must be the bad child. Or, you know what, let's expel them because we don't know how to take care of them. Or we don't have the resources on how to support their behavior, opposed to really, you know, discovering what might be at the source, what might be going on with this child that they might not be behaving the way that we would want them to behave. And I put this in quotations, you know, because children are also exploring. They're exploring and they're learning their own emotions, their own behaviors. And not only do we as adults have these biases, but children are also picking them up. They're picking up the cues of how we respond or we don't respond, because even silence communicates something. So just be really conscious around that. You know, and as children, just like us adults, we're labeling and figuring out who belongs in what group. And if this person is like me, then, you know, I can play with them. But if they're different from me, can I really relate to them the same way that I do? So first, you know, and how do we, and Norma, I don't know if you answered this question or if I might be jumping ahead, but like.
So before you go, there's some, they've shared, Melissa and Noemi have posted some links on where you can take a bias test.
Yes.
And
awesome.
it's something that I encourage all of us to do, because I was one of those people that I was like, I don't need to take it because I'm not biased. It's not like, no. And then I had to check myself, because it's like, well, who do you think you are? I'm like, I know I'm not biased. So it's something that, take the test, and you know, we all have our own biases. And so that's something like, just, you know, don't sleep on that link. I encourage everybody to take it.
Yeah.
And we have Melissa also contributed that, yes, different is not wrong.
Yeah.
Just something one of our panelists wasn't able to join us, but something she said is just by human nature, and you guys can correct me because I tend to make up quotes. Our brains are wired to pay attention to things that are different from us, just because I guess back in the day when we were cave people, those are things that could have potentially killed us or harmed us. So just by nature, we're wired to have those little alarm bells go off when something is different. Mm-hmm. But now that, you know, we are not in cave people, you know, it's our job to, you know, put the extra effort to check the little alarm systems that go off. And I guess also as a follow-up is, how do we check our own implicit biases, and so we ensure that they don't negatively impact the children we serve and the families that, you know, we serve?
Yeah, so, you know, really it comes down with identifying your own implicit bias. That's where we really have to start as well. Take a deep reflection as to even your practices. You know, one of the great things within, well, really anywhere in life, but especially in education, is reflect back in your classroom, your interactions with families, your interactions with children. How do you respond to certain children or certain families? Do you respond the same way? Are they different? As well as look at your classroom. Are they inclusive? Are they really reflective of all families' experiences, of all children's experiences, of all your colleagues, their own experiences? Because this can also really show up in a way where once children start noticing, oh wait, I'm not represented here, so do I belong here? That's where that impact begins. So being really, really mindful about the environment. And as well as, you know, if you hear a child or even you catch yourself saying something, stop yourself. Just be like, you know what? I meant to say it this way. Or if a child says something along the lines that sounds like a stereotype, pause, ask them, what do you mean by that? And have deeper reflection, have deeper conversations with them. Because really, oftentimes when we think about like gender, race, all of these, what we would say as taboo topics, and I'm really putting them in quotations because they are part of human development, they're part of being human, we stop and say, oh no, they're too young to talk about this. Know that kids are picking up on this. They're seeing it in the videos, they're seeing it in the media, they're seeing it around themselves. So the more that we can interject and provide a positive learning environment for them, the more we can really start decreasing some of those biases that in the long run can turn into microaggressions.
Yeah, there was a study a long time ago that had little African-American girls, and they gave them just little blonde dolls. And they found that at the end of the study, they found that the self-esteem was just so poor because they realized, oh, this is what a girl's supposed to look like, and I don't look like that. So something as simple as you would never think of, making sure that all the different, races, colors, ethnicities, cultures, religions, there's a lot of religions across Florida, not just one or two, there's a lot, being able to be, encourage the children to be proud of themselves and where they come from and their culture and their traditions is really important. One of the things that I see often in different places is like, bring something about your religion day or about your culture day and be able to teach the children how to like celebrate and respect other people's differences. We don't all have to agree, but we should be able to respect each other. Somebody very wise once told me that you don't have to agree with me, accept me, or think that I'm right, but, the respect is the important piece, right? So for example, you may have some kids that have two moms or two dads or a mom that used to be the dad, right? Or things like that. And it's about taking our own judgment and opinion, and it's okay whatever we think about it. That's totally okay. And whatever you believe and the religion that we have and what our faith tells us, that's perfectly fine. But when we're doing the work with the children, how can we check those things, right? That unconscious maybe stuff, or like we see, oh, mom, used to be dad and this, what, right? Realizing that inside the pit of your stomach and being able to analyze that and be like, wait, that's some unconscious bias I didn't realize I have. Let me check that. Because I can feel however I want to feel, but I can't discriminate against that child or that parent because of, however I feel. So that respect really is the key, right? To all the differences.
And can you also, Noemi, talk, I guess, add a little bit of like, what is the impact? What impact does this have on our children?
Well, we talk a lot about internalized phobias, internalized thoughts. You guys have so much power. You guys are so important to me. You guys are shaping these brains of these babies from when they're little. Everything around them, they're just absorbing. So even our facial expressions, right? If let's say someone's talking about like a gay couple and you go, oh, right? That facial expression, all of a sudden that send a message to the kid that, wait, being gay is bad, being gay is wrong. So then as they figure out, wait, hold on a second, I'm a little girl and I like little girls, right? That's something that, kids, I'm sorry, but my daughter had a boyfriend and when she was 2, right? So kids have little crushes and little boyfriends and girlfriends, even in your own classroom. So those things are starting to come out, and like, there's little boys that want to play with princess dresses and, their little things, and they read everything that we're saying, and then they know, wow, that's really wrong. But I really like to wear that princess dress, even though I'm a boy. Why does it have to be just for girls? How does that, that's that message from when they're building their brains that, wait, who I am is wrong. Something's wrong with me. I'm bad. I'm evil. And that doesn't go away. That stays with them the rest of their life. And it takes a lot of therapy to help alleviate that. Sometimes I get 30-year-olds that remember in kindergarten, when the teacher said, wait, you can't, hold the hand of another boy because that's bad. And that's bad and that's evil and that's horrible. And that wasn't what we intended to do. At all. We don't want to hurt anybody. We're all here because we love and we want to help our kids. So something as simple as that really is something that's socially constructed, can do a lot of damage. So things that are socially constructed is something that we as a society kind of assume that's correct, right? So for example, once upon a time, it was absolutely correct and the truth that the earth was flat, right? The earth was flat, the sun revolved around the earth, right? That was the truth. If you thought anything different, you were murdered, burned, killed, right? The works. Because, that was the truth, right? Well, in different parts of the world, everybody has their own socially constructed vision of what being male, woman, race, ethnicity, what is right, what is wrong. Like all those things really are based depending on the culture and the place you live. Like for example, in India, there's 3 genders. There's male, female, and then the other gender that you could legally on your, on your license and on your papers have that 3rd gender on there. Because they legally, that's the culture sees that as an affirmed gender, and many other cultures feel that same way. But here we're not like that. So are they wrong? Are we right? Are we wrong? Like it really isn't about that. It's about being able to see it in context, right? And then how do we practice with our kids and our families thinking of, well, my opinion is my opinion and it's okay, but how do I, work with other kids on this when it's not my socially constructed idea, my frame.
Thank you. And I guess just as a reminder, if you've been joining us, please feel free, if anything bubbles up, any questions, please throw them in the chat, because we're all keeping an eye on it, the panelists, and we'll try our best to answer them as we go along. So I guess my next question is going to be for Jennifer Solomon. She previously introduced herself as a parent and also as the president of PFLAG South Miami. So my question to you is, why is it important to be affirming to a child's individual experience?
Yeah, I love that question. I'd love to share my story so you can understand where I'm coming from as a parent. So my youngest child, when he was about 18 months, 2 years old, right before we started preschool, I noticed was gravitating more towards female toys. I was asking for Barbies. We'd go to Toys R Us, and instead of going over to the toy section, he really was going more towards the gender stereotypical girl toys. And as an open, accepting family, I allowed him to do that. But of course, a little red flag was going off. And he was my 4th child, so kind of thought I had this parenting thing down pat, but each child is separate and different. And so in starting preschool and letting my child explore, we have discovered he's gender nonconforming, which basically means that I have a child that was born male, identifies as male. If you ask him, he is a boy, but he likes to say a little bit of a different kind of boy. So he enjoys things that are more stereotypical girls. He presents, if you saw him passing the street, you think he's a little girl. He has long hair. He wears clothes that are more stereotypical female. And this was a journey that I took that started, like I said, very young in preschool. And I really believe early childhood, his experience and my experience as a family, as a parent, was shaped in his preschool years. We were very fortunate to be in a preschool that allowed my child to dress up in those princess dresses. So the child that Noemi was speaking of, really, I have that child. And I think that had he been made to feel bad about his choices, I definitely know I would have a different child now. I have a happy, healthy child that enjoys ballet, all kinds of dance. He's an expert in makeup. He can put on makeup better than any woman I know. He enjoys things that, and fashion, and he may be the next Tommy Hilfiger, who knows? But all I know is that when he was young and I was a parent coming to my preschool teachers and questioning, have you seen other?
I think we lost her.
Checking on her.
Okay.
I know that one of the things that she always says there is how, like, knowing that her teachers were so accepting. Is she back? No.
Jennifer, you back? Yeah. Okay. Go.
But knowing that her teachers were so accepting of her child and were willing to support her really made the difference, because she was able to support her child then. And if she had a different experience in her school, chances are that she may not, be the parent that she has, and her child wouldn't be as amazing as he is. I've met him. He is amazing. Very joyous, sweet boy, smart boy. And then I usually say the opposite story, right? I had a client when they were like 3 or 4 years old that came to see me because they were getting bullied at school because she was a girl, but really liked all sorts of boy stuff. So then for Halloween, she went as a superhero, right? And the girls were like, you can't be a superhero. You have to be a princess. Superheroes are for boys. I remember it was Iron Man that she picked. And you can't do that. And it was horrible. So even though the teacher was like, well, the kids are right. Like you really should, wear girl stuff. And she kind of tried to like minimize that. Kids will still do stuff behind your back, in the bathroom and different things. So it got so bad that the little girl ended up in the hospital because she would avoid going to the bathroom because the kids would say things in the bathroom like, oh, why, you're actually a boy, not a girl. You're not really a boy. Like, how could you be like that? How could you dress like that? They were so intense with her that she stopped going to the bathroom, trying to stop being alone with them. And she almost died. After that, we realized what was going on, and we allowed, that next birthday, she told her mom, the thing I want most in my entire life is that when I grow up, I want to be a boy. Her mom literally called me in tears. She's like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, we'll figure it out and we'll deal with this. The child's now in his teenage years and he is definitely a boy. So she had to take, the child from that school, put him in another school, came in as a boy and, really flourished. He went from a child that was depressed and anxious and couldn't, relate socially to anybody to a child that really flourished, did better in school, could have friends. And now he's an adolescent boy and looking forward to manhood.
So I think, Jennifer, thank you so much.
All right, I don't know.
Jennifer came back.
World of COVID, right? You think you're talking to people and all of a sudden you're talking to yourself. I don't know where I cut off, but so my story is the opposite, and I love that Noemi shares what could be, because I know that could have been our family and that could have been my child. And so I want to really emphasize how important it is to have that open communication with parents. It's a scary place to be whenever we see something with our children that doesn't follow that society norm. It's very isolating, and you feel that maybe perhaps you're the only one. You can feel that perhaps it's something you did as a parent, or you should be doing something different. Our kids don't come with guides. I wish they did. Wouldn't that be so easy? We only get to write the books later on. But just so you are so important to those children and to those parents to reassure them that following your child and allowing your child to express who they are, because I promise you, I could have taken away the dresses. I could still take away the dresses. I could make him conform to what society says a boy is. And I also could look at the suicide statistics of these children. And I will never forget one night, online looking up, a boy wants to wear a girl dress. Like, what does that mean? And how does that look? And what is that? I came upon the suicide statistics. They're really scary. And I right then and there decided I will not be my child's first bully. And I will have my child be a flamboyant boy if he was transgender, a transgender child. But I want my child alive, I want him safe, and I want him to know that he's loved. And by making sure that the educators in his life respect him, and again, what Noemi said, whenever I speak to a teacher about having Cooper in their class, I always make sure they understand that I'm not asking anyone to wave the LGBTQ flag, bring this into their life, change their mind. Just asking for my child to be respected and supported. And we all know that if children don't feel safe, they cannot learn. And that goes from the time they're very young. So if my child didn't feel safe wearing that My Little Pony shirt to school, then and when another child would say, well, why are you wearing that? That's for girls. And I would love that there was a teacher nearby saying, well, you know, ponies are ponies. There's, you know, you can wear whatever, shirts are shirts, colors are colors. And what happened in the classroom more was there were other little boys that maybe were looking over at the dress up area and thought, oh, I can't hold a baby doll and put on a dress and pretend to cook because that's wrong. But then they saw my child over there doing that, and they were able to explore. Now, they're not gender nonconforming. They just wanted to play maybe what they see their dads doing at home. But it opens up an area that children feel safe to explore who they are. And it really, really starts in the preschool years. And I feel very fortunate that we had the situation that that was positive. So I think don't underestimate the power that you have to change a child's life, because those preschool teachers, who I'm still in touch with today, have really set that foundation of learning for my child, and I am so appreciative.
Can I add something, Norma? I know I'm not scheduled to talk on this, but I just want to add something from a provider perspective, because this is something that we are really careful and conscious about, is including books about different kinds of families, of different kind of people. If boys want to wear dresses, they're allowed to wear dresses in our space, and we talk to the children about it. When we have children have conversations about, oh, only moms can use this, or only dads can use this. So we have conversations and unpack that. We've had kids, you know, we draw a line and say, wait, could maybe both people use this? And so I think it's really important. I know we stick to curriculum a lot, but having children have books that are about people like them or families like them, and having conversations about that is so critical. And, you know, we've had parents come and say, well, I didn't like that you said, boys wear makeup, let's just say. And we say, well, we were talking about Gasparilla, and guess what? There were boys wearing makeup, or there were, so it's just so important to have, even if you might get some pushback from families, it's important to share why we're doing what we do, and explaining to them that it's actually critical. So I just wanted to add that. Sorry.
And if I may add just one more thing, if that's okay, really when it comes to the topics of gender, they're also cultural, they're generational, there's so many things that come into play. It's very intersectional. And especially when it comes to toys, when we limit certain children from using specific toy, we're also limiting their development. For example, especially, when using a baby doll, we're talking about social emotional connection. When we're talking about Legos, we're talking about spatial awareness. And then we wonder, we may hear the thought, girls aren't good at math, or boys don't cry, especially that one. We all have tear ducts, but we tell half of our population not to use them. So we're also limiting that developmental piece. And when it comes from a parent perspective, a lot of times it comes from fear. That fear of like, what if my child is acting this way and they're going to get bullied? What's going to happen then there? And the reality is that children at a young age are exploring, like Victoria and Jennifer was just mentioning. They're exploring. They're not just exploring. Oftentimes we think, they're going to be gay. No. Gender expression has nothing to do with orientation, whom you're attracted to. Children are still exploring, just playing around. So just keeping those thoughts in mind as well, and even how we react in certain cases. Because as educators, I remember when I was a teacher and a director of a childcare center, there would be times where I wasn't sure how to interrupt certain children, and the reality, because they might be saying, actually, I had this child, just real quick, he was a little boy. We were using crayons, and he's like, oh no, I can't use the pink crayon because that's for girls. So we limit ourselves even, and then we police ourselves, children police themselves, and then they police their friends. And that's the impact, the trickle effect of when we don't have those affirming spaces, when we don't have these conversations, when we don't have those books. And even going all the way up to the very beginning when parents are coming into the school. Are your forms reflective? Do they say mom, dad, or is it parent one, parent two, or should I say parent one, guardian? Because we also have children who may not have a mom and dad, who may not have a parent and live with their grandparents or in foster care. So it's a full dynamic of different experiences that are coming into our classrooms, into our schools.
Can I add something real quick? I know there are other questions. I just want to bring up the point that what Jen was saying about sexuality and gender and how completely separate those are, and most people combine them. So a fear that you may be hearing if you have a parent that comes to you and says, please don't let my little boy play in the dress up area, I don't want them to be gay, and you may hear that, or a form of that kind of request, and how to respond to that. My child's 9 and I still don't know if he's going to be gay because he doesn't know his sexuality. He's not attracted to anyone yet. So certainly pointing out the difference between gender identity and sexual identity in a layman's terms, in our class, our children all play together with whatever they'd like, and you don't have to worry that your child is going to be gay if they're playing with baby dolls. Another thing is that I feel like sometimes parents will come to you with that and it sounds like a request, but honestly it's a question. Please don't let my child play in the dress up corner, he's a boy. Maybe you can answer with, well, it sounds like maybe you're fearful if your child starts playing with girl toys that they're going to be gay, or that they'll be bullied, or that's something different. But really that's very normal. And like Jen said, that's developmentally appropriate and it's fine. So parents may come to you with that and want that reassurance that it's okay and it is normal and your child is where they're supposed to be, and this isn't, a red flag for them. So I just want to put that out because I feel that you may hear that, and that's a hard place to go to, like wanting to support the child's interest, and yet, if a parent is requesting that, how you can answer to it. So I just put that in there.
Thank you, Jennifer. I feel like this is something that we can explore so much, because I know that each one of us as teachers is probably thinking back to that one child that we've had that experience, or we're currently experiencing this with, or a parent or a family. But one of the things I kind of wanted to segue into this is, as we're talking about affirming a child's identity as far as gender goes, but also race. Sometimes, it's something that I'm on the board of the Miami-Dade County Council PTSA, and we live in Miami-Dade, and everyone says it's so diverse. But one of the things we're exploring is that within our diversity, there is a lot of segregation. So if we're seeing this at the elementary school level, then, obviously it's going to be prevalent in early childhood. So what are some things, how can we be affirming to children from different cultures and race?
Yeah, so I can, you're going to go?
No, go ahead.
So one of the things with that is having books, this is a great practice, is having books within your classroom that share about all experiences, especially when it comes to race. Children are also having their own biases as to who belongs in which group. So opening up those dialogues, don't be afraid to do that. Children are already packed up with so much information that they might know more than us sometimes, but having those conversations, also helping children become more aware that, the people within their families, their friends, how are they alike? How are they different? But really more so, it's important to expand their knowledge, beyond just their bubble. Another piece to that is, we are growing wider. Our community is growing wider with more diverse experiences. And what children are learning in their early years is going to transcend into their adulthood. So the more, and a piece of it is, having empathy for other folks. It's not just, hey, how can I put this? I just lost it right now. But having empathy for other people's experiences, because the reality is, we are all humans and we're all here trying to strive for the same thing, to feel as if we belong, to feel as if we are loved. And that's what everyone is looking for. So have those conversations, engage in them. And once you hear something that a child might say that might come off as disrespectful, or, and not only that, but children are curious, and oftentimes they ask questions out of curiosity. Engage in those conversations and find out more of, what do you mean by that? Go ahead.
Thank you.
So I dropped in the link, a link to socialjusticebooks.org. I'm sorry. It's like a resource for like social justice books on all sorts of topics for all sorts of age. You can like search it on topic and age and like literacy. So that way you can see, if I'm doing, a 3-year-old classroom versus a 8th grade versus, high school, then you can kind of see what books you'd want to use for the class. So I dropped it in there.
Thank you. And then this question is for Jennifer Solomon, just as a parent, because I want the majority of us here are educators, but from a parent's point of view, what are some of the best practices to ensure that, all children and families feel included and feel like they do belong there in that classroom?
I think that we touched on a lot of them. The books, absolutely. I know that something that really helped sort of break the ice in a new classroom for my child was reading one of these books. There's a book called Jacob's New Dress, for example, which is about a little boy who wears a dress to school and how the children relate to him and react to him. And so I know that having books like that available for the children to read, also seeing themselves reflected in those stories, are very important. The forms, the families that I deal with, some of them are same-sex couples that are raising children, and it's difficult when they have to mark off dad on that form and do mom, and it starts the year off on a sort of awkward, do we explain, do we have to out ourselves every single time and hope that we're going to be in an affirming place. So having a form that just has parent 1, parent 2, guardians, alleviates that right away sort of barrier for parents. So forms are really important. Having that open communication, that you're able to talk to a teacher and say, I always explain, and I just sent the email yesterday for this coming year for my child's teacher, you're going to look at my child and think that that they go by girl pronouns, but actually it's boy pronouns. So being able to have that communication at whatever level with the teacher is just so important. And I know that I feel safe having my child go into that class. So having that back and forth is really important, even from the time they're very little. If you see a child behaving in a certain way and you want to be able to tell that parent and say, it's okay, that communication is number one. I mean, really the foundation for our kids' education starts so young, and having books and having, not being separated, that's another huge thing. Addressing the children not by boy, girl, because our human brains like to put things into boxes. So we like to be able to say, well, here's our boys in the class, here's our girls in the class. But again, not everybody fits so neatly in those boxes. So addressing your class by students, or good morning friends instead of good morning boys and girls, just will make a child like mine feel so special, so included. So those little things really do make a big difference.
Thank you. Does anybody else, Tori, Jennifer Lopez, do you have anything to add, Normie?
A big part of it, I don't know if it was mentioned already. I was replying to something in the chat, but we all come from diverse backgrounds. So bringing those cultures into your classroom as well. Ask families and children to bring in something from their own culture and speak about it. to really make sure that children are included and that they feel as if they're reflected. Look at your curriculum as well. You know, does your curriculum reflect true diversity and inclusion? Is there something missing? And if those books perhaps may be stereotypical or, you know, might not be as diverse, use them as a lesson, engage in those conversations and ask questions like, why do you think, you know, such and such, you know, this book, you know, great book. I like the Dick and Jane books, you know, that we all grew up with. They were very stereotypical, but use those as learning materials, as well as ensure that a lot of the books that you do have are also diverse in culture, not just around gender, but around culture, race, and that they are inclusive, and families.
And I think too, you know, as you know, making sure it's not that stereotypic. I think that's so important. You see a lot of like, you know, oh, it's Cinco de Mayo, so we're going to do Taco Tuesday. You know, those kinds of things that are like so cliche. Like it's so much more important to have authentic experiences and have families participate in authentic ways. So one of the things that we always try to do, so let's say we do project approach. So we do these long in-depth projects. So we find out what the parents' area of expertise is. So, you know, maybe we have a dad that's a contractor and he comes in and he shows us how to use his tools. Or we have you know, a migrant family that might work on a farm. They come and share their farming expertise. And that's so meaningful for children versus these like kind of top down, like, hey, you come and do this. It's more about them coming into you. And the kids are so proud of that when they see their parent as like this expert. I just think that's important to note.
Thank you. And yes, I remember Cinco de Mayo would throw me off because I'm from Central America. I'm from Nicaragua. So even the tortillas didn't even look the same. Like we all have our own tortilla style of what corn or what part of the corn. So that was always like, I don't, you know, I was at the front of the stage waving my maracas, but it meant nothing to me. So one of the things, so I think, you know, you've all shared so many amazing, important things. And this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I touched upon it at the beginning, was, you know, FLACY and the role we have in advocating and advocacy. Yay, I see another Nicaraguan person. We have like, we do advocacy, you know, and it's something that we do at a federal level, we do it state level, and then locally. And I will drop an email address if you want to connect with our chapter and then learn more about that. But two things that I wanted to take the opportunity was, just as we heard Jennifer Solomon share her story, and it means something, it's her experience. You as educators, directors, and teachers, you each have your own story, you know, what you've experienced through COVID times, pre-COVID, and just your everyday teaching experiences, that one child that you did make a difference, the one that got away, because there's always that one child in one family that you just felt like, if I could just have them here one more year. So just every now and then you'll see FLACY ask for stories. Oh, we want you to share your stories. And I want to encourage you to share, because you are the experts. We have a lot of good data, we have the science, but you know, your stories, you are the experts of your experience, and you are what, you know, everybody really connects with. And in that line, just as, you know, that character from the Dr. Seuss books, the one that the Laura, I speak for the trees, you speak for all the children in your care, and even the parents, just you, because you're the one that has the words and you're the one that's able to make those connections. So you're advocates, you know, every day in your classroom, every interaction, every time you tell mom, like, Mom, come here, like, let's talk. You're advocating on behalf, and sometimes it becomes uncomfortable, and I know a lot of times it ends in tears because you're scared. You're scared that you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want them to get mad. Somebody's going to get mad. But at the end of the day, those children, they need you, and you are their voice, and they spend so much time with you that you know them. you know their cries. You don't even have to turn, like, you know who's doing what, where. And so you bring their stories to their parents. And, just as Lacey as an organization, we will ask, that you share your stories with us. And we'll definitely, send you links. And I see our Lacey president, she's on there today. I just want to make sure I give her a shout out. She just gave me the. Hi, Heather.
Hi, guys. Hi, everybody.
But yes, I just wanted to let you guys know that, we, advocacy, it looks different and it shows up, even showing up for this conversation, that's advocacy. So, you don't have to come with me and knock on doors and, bother the elected officials who just thank you for showing up. And I guess as we, we're rounding out the end of our webinar. So if there's anything that you guys are curious about, you have any other questions, you can drop them in the chat. And we're here. So what I wanted to give everyone a chance to, we're calling it the plug zone. So we all wear many different hats, and I just gave you my plug on advocacy and the work we do and how important it is, to show up and share your story. I want to give the other panel members a couple seconds to share a little bit more about their organizations. So I will go with Tori. I'll ask you to talk a little bit more about the directors chapter.
Yeah, so we started a directors chapter last year. It's for anyone that's a leader, either of a center or somebody that's in the field that is in some kind of a leadership position. And really the point, much like Norma was saying, it's kind of your organization. I have a co-chair, Hillary, that assists me, and really we're trying to make it about directors in general. So whatever they need, we're trying to be responsive to that. So, when COVID was happening, we tried to meet the needs and, address that. We might do a book study. There's so many different things. It's kind of up in the air right now as we're just kind of gearing into the new school year. But I encourage, if you're interested, please go to the Lacey website and just send a note that you'd like to be a part of our group, and we will definitely add you. We want to be a resource. And, I know when I became a director 5 years ago, I did not have experience in it. I, thought I was, gonna go teach at a university and not be connected to a school. So I learned really quick that a director's job is really like 50 jobs. And I was completely overwhelmed and didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know where to reach out to for help. So we want to be that person so that you don't feel like you're drowning in the pool that you were thrown into. So that's a little bit about us.
Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer Solomon, can you tell us more about PFLAG? I know you're the president of South Miami, but we have, for everybody else, tell us about it and how they can connect with the chapter in Florida.
Sure. So PFLAG, like I said, is an organization that started many years ago from a mom that was really just proud of her child, her gay child, and realized there weren't support groups for families like hers that are looking to connect with other parents. And I get my best advice from other parents. It's great to be able to say, hey, has anyone had this issue talking to a teacher, or even simple issues like my son wants to wear a bikini, but I need to find one that really covers him well, so all kinds of support, advocacy. PFLAG has a website, and I can put it, I think you put our local one, I can also put the national one, and you Google PFLAG, and you put in your zip code, and there are chapters all over. I'm also in charge of a lot of the chapters here in Florida. I'm trying to put together where we have a directory of just Florida ones. So if you'd like to know where your local one is, you can either go on the national website and put in your zip code, or you can contact me and I can put you in touch with one that's close by. I also didn't mention also on the HRC, Human Rights Campaign, I'm part of their Parents Transgender Equality Council, and we're a group of parents that advocate nationwide for children like ours. There's a program called Welcoming Schools, and I will put the link. Oh, thank you, Norma, for putting our link. But the Welcoming Schools is, when we're talking about the books, all the wonderful books that are out there that show diverse families, there are actually curriculums or questions and follow-up that are on the Welcoming Schools website. If you click on the link, you can see all different things if you wanted to explore it more in your classroom. So I wanted to make sure to put Welcoming Schools link in there, and that's from the HRC. And yeah, that's probably about it.
Thank you. And let's see, Noemi.
Well, I'm the director of Counseling Connect, which is a private agency for mental health care. We also focus on gender orientation, infant and early childhood, trauma. I work a lot with DCF and other families in preschools. I do consultation in the schools to kind of work through some of these, issues that people are having, these questions. Looking at mental health. I provide education for families and for teachers and doctors and all sorts of folks. I also do supervision for the endorsement that is, spreading all across Florida for infant mental health workers like yourself. I also run South Florida Health Collaborative, which is a nonprofit side to Counseling Connect. We use these amazing interns from Barry University and FIU to be able to provide quality services, to people that can't pay private practice prices, and then maybe don't have insurance, things like that.
Okay, Jennifer Lopez, did you?
I can share a little bit. So I work over, as I mentioned before, I work at Yes Institute, and we are a suicide and bullying prevention organization. And one of my many roles is I oversee and had created our early childhood bullying prevention program, which is really bringing these topics to the forefront in early childhood, topics around gender orientation, equity and inclusion within the classroom. How do we start opening up these conversations? How do we work with parents who may have different points of views from us? How do we include it all to ensure that classrooms are affirming as well as schools? So I can share the link to that, as well as we have a list of resource books that you can use. And if at any point, of course, while we are here in Miami because of COVID, we are also able to virtually travel anywhere. So we can provide not only teacher trainings, we do work with children as young as 4 years old, opening up these dialogues, as well as parents, faith communities, workplaces, hospitals, medical professionals, mental health, really anywhere that there's people and we're invited. We're there, happy to open up the dialogue and work with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I want to turn it over back to our president, Heather. She's the president for FLACY. So.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you for spending your time to learn about this very important topic, and for our panelists and Norma for taking the lead. I would encourage you to get involved in both chapters with Advocacy and the Directors chapter. I think you will find them very supportive for your businesses and, just as you as a professional in the early childhood field. You're also welcome to join the Florida Association for the Education of Young Children as a member if you are not already a member. And to share that information with others in the field. I think that the state of Florida is doing some really big things right now, and it's a really exciting time to be involved and be engaged in the community. So thank you again for being here. And Norma, thanks for allowing me to take a couple minutes of your time today.
Thank you, Heather. I guess we are going to wrap it up, but I just want to say, I want to thank Jennifer Lopez because although we live in the same county, I feel she wears many different hats, and she's everywhere, and she's just been amazing and thank you for putting this, all together. I feel, I'm so glad that I caught you first in our advocacy. But thank you so much. Tori, thank you for collaborating with us with the directors chapter on our other statewide chapter arm. But I thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I hope to see these names and beautiful faces again during our virtual conference coming up. And we're going to send a follow-up email with links and other information that we've been throwing in the chat. And also, if you need CEUs, that will also be a follow-up email. So if you are a FLACI member, you get your CEUs for free. And if you're not a FLACI member, it's a small fee that I don't have that at the top of my head. But thank you, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Norma, for organizing this.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye, Paola. Kelsey, I'm not that fast of a typer, but we are going to send out an email with that information on how you can get your CEU. Have a great weekend.